What's the one thing, if you could go back and fix it from the off season, do or undo? What's that one thing you would have done or undone? It may have been something that you were saying at the time. It doesn't have to be. This can be, hindsight being 50-50, as Steve Spurrier once said. But what's that one thing that you go back and do or undo? We sit here at 3-8, 2 days before Thanksgiving, really having no hope. Season is lost, despite what we opened up the show with. A few people that have figured out that with 4 division games left, it might be a few weeks before we're actually mathematically eliminated. But anyway, I digress. What is the one thing, your number one overall? All right. I have a list of a lot of things, but I'm going to give you my number one. Um, Although it's really it's basically like a very close 1 through 5 list, but I'm going to give you number one because it was something we certainly contemplated during the off season. We weren't sure, though, what the answer was. And I'm not even convinced that we're still sure that this was the answer. But there were some pretty good defensive coordinators out there in the offseason. Robert Saleh was available. Brandon Staley was available. I'm not saying he would have come here. Lou Anarumo was available. Jeff Ulbrich, who has coached with Dan Quinn before, was out there doing a pretty good job in Atlanta. I think that, yes, the talent wasn't good enough. And the injuries obviously are the number one reason the defense is as bad as it is. I'm not even putting it all on Joe Witt Jr. I don't think you can. I've told you guys this throughout this season. From what I've been told going back to when it really started to fall apart, it's like it's everything. It's not just him. But I thought last year that the players they had weren't like the worst players in the world. Frankie Louvu had an exceptional year. They had, Bobby Wagner playing at a decent level. They had some players playing at decent levels. And yet the actual output last year just wasn't good enough, especially against the run. And I think that, on my list, and I'll get to some of the others after we take calls and get to some of yours, there's a lot of personnel decisions. They need better personnel on defense, but I think I would have, they got to it eventually, and I don't think they got to it just because they felt like they had to do something. I don't think that's true. A lot of you, since he was demoted, have said they should have done this a while ago. They don't really even want to do it. They feel like they have to do something. Just like, moving on from Matt Gay, who, by the way, was 2 for 2 last night, right? I think he was 2 for 2 last night for the 49ers. Of course he was. I think given the number of really solid, get more out of less experienced defensive guys that were out there, by the way, I didn't even throw out Dennis Allen. Like Allen, Anarumo, Saleh, Staley, Ulbrich, I think I would have as much. Look, this isn't me making the decision about a friend, but I'm just saying my number one, and it's a close one with 3 or 4 others. I mean, there's a lot to choose from with this question. I think I would have replaced Joe Witt Jr. in the offseason with somebody a lot more experienced. 301-230-0980. Max, what's your number one?
So my number one, we've been kind of talking about it, me and some callers, and I mentioned it to you before, but getting the Terry deal done, I think would have been helpful for everybody involved, especially Terry, and just keeping him healthy, keeping him on the field, keeping him on the practice field, getting him warmed up and ramped up at the right time. Same with everybody else. Now there's never really going to be any concrete evidence whether or not that's going to keep him healthy throughout this season. But I mean, if you have more time to, ramp up and get to game shape, you're probably not going to be as injured as you are throughout this season. So I think hindsight being 2020, like going into this season, if you understand that he's going to be injured going into it, I would think it would have been worth the extra money to just sign him, get him back on the practice field, get him ramped up, get the offense looking like a semblance of what it looked like last year. And maybe that makes all the difference in the season. Who knows? But yeah, I think getting the Terry deal done would be one of the things that I would, at the top of my mind, change.
Yeah, when I thought about this, I thought that was going to be a big answer from a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, just, suck it up, overpay him, get it done. This is window number one. When the season ended last year, I had my list and I keep it, near me every day. Window number one, Jaden's rookie deal. What do they need to do? I said culture continuation. You have to bring back Mariota, Wagner, Ertz, and I said even Chin. Number two is defense, specifically edge setting defensive end, and I had S as in ends, but you also need pass rush. Number three on my list was you got to figure out Lattimore. Like, if there's a concern, culture fit wise, playing wise, you've got to address corner. Don't fear cutting your losses before they lead to more losses. You've built up enough equity in 1 year to admit our bad. Next up on my list was maybe a left tackle in the draft. I put that down on my list, even though there was a feeling that Coleman was going to be the guy. And remember, the Tunsil trade was a jaw-dropping surprise. And then I wrote another number 2 wide receiver and or running back. And then lastly, I wrote kicker, please. That was window number 1, off season number 1. So now in hindsight, to me, number 1 would have been, given the number of talented, experienced defensive coordinators out there, I think I would have moved on from Joe Witt Jr. much earlier than what they did. All right, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. What's the one thing you'd go back and fix? What's the one thing you'd go back and do that wasn't done, or undo that was done? Let's start with Fuad. Fuad in Silver Spring. Go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Kevin, how's it going, man? I love the show. I'm a big fan of the podcast.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
So I would change the overall approach. I think from the off season, from minicamp, from training camp, it was a very soft approach. I mean, I went there myself one of the days, took my kids there, and we read all of the reports that there wasn't a lot of intensity. There was kind of a lot. It was as if you would have expected it. The vibe that I got from reading the reports was like this was a camp of a team that's been to 5 Super Bowls, that's been to championship games, that been there and done that, that's proven that they're a proven commodity and a year in, year out contender. And I really do feel like it's not a coincidence from the first preseason game, that first play, first opening kickoff against New England,
right.
We've been getting
Travion Henderson.
We never got into a rhythm in any of the games. And I know that Jaden didn't play a lot, but just from an operational perspective, offense, defense, special teams. Now, special teams has been really good throughout the season, but we just never looked like we had everything together. And I don't think that that's not a coincidence. I mean, DQ last year was great with his situational football, with his awareness of time and score and knowing when to go for it and having a good feel. And this year, it's just been so off. Like he's looked like he's just been behind the 8 ball. Like he's going for it when he shouldn't be going for it. I just think the overall approach was they leaned too much into this quote unquote culture that they've built, which I have a big problem with, because it seems like you don't have to the great teams that win, they don't have to constantly talk about culture. They just do it, right? It's just a part of what they do and who they are. They don't have to constantly preach and catch phrases. And that, to me, I feel like you have to talk about that stuff when you are.
Okay. Yeah, we're losing you a little bit. But yeah, thanks, Fuad, for the call. I've heard the soft camp, the training camp approach wasn't, intense enough. Look, you might be right. I just don't know if it's a lot different than other camps. It might be. I certainly did not get the sense about training camp or the off season that they felt like they had arrived. I didn't get that sense at all. I mean, I've had some of you, people reach out and say, Jaden, didn't approach this season the way he approached his rookie season because he already felt like he arrived. That's absurd. There's no proof of that whatsoever. No evidence of that whatsoever. I don't think that was it. You might be right in terms of, was it too soft of a camp? They didn't have some of their key players going back to the offseason. No Terry, no Noah Brown for a lot of the offseason, so there wasn't, a lot of opportunity for year 2 chemistry to evolve. And ultimately it wouldn't have mattered anyway, because these players got hurt and weren't available to the team anyway. But I can't really give you a firm answer as to whether or not that there's any truth to that. My gut is that there's not. I know what the preseason games looked like, but they're preseason games. The players that were scheduled to play in the regular season did not play in those games. Now, if you want to say that they should have taken a different approach, and by the way, a different approach than most teams in the NFL, and played their starters in the preseason, and that would have gotten them ready, okay. I'm not against that. I've never been against that. I don't like the preseason opportunities that they basically decide not to take advantage of. There definitely was again, not with their own players. Actually, the irony is some of these players that did play in preseason games that eventually got cut did come back and play for them this year, including a lot of guys that weren't on their preseason roster. But remember, there were a lot of mistakes. There were a lot of penalties. Weren't there a lot of penalties in that New England game? It was Travion Henderson who returned that opening kickoff for a touchdown, right? Wasn't it? Here, yeah, Travion Henderson. First preseason game, they had 13 penalties. And you guys went wild, and I said, well, yeah, I'd be upset too. But none of the players that are going to play for them when the season starts against New York played in the game. And now, if you want to say it set the tone, I don't know, man. It's tough for me to jump on board with that. I think the preseason is just, it's abysmal. Everything about it. I mean, look at what was coming out of camp in hindsight. Oh my God, this secondary. How many times did we hear about how the secondary had made a massive leap and that this was going to be the strength of the football team other than on defense? I mean, they couldn't cover from the jump. Let's go to G. G, what's the one thing you'd go back and fix, either do or undo from the offseason?
My first one, I would have kept Diami Brown instead of Noah Brown.
One. That's on my list too.
And like, there's so much broke stuff. You got to name more than just one, because I'd have bet on Brian Robinson Jr. instead of making Eckler your bell cow, because he always gets hurt, and he definitely got hurt. I would have kidnapped Joe Witt and Dan Quinn to make sure they really had a solid plan to get their defense better, because it looks way worse than it did last year. And, like, I laughed when you called it soft, Sheehan, talking about the people that say shut them down. It's soft. It's soft. No, it's not. Hey, Sheehan, would you put new tires on a car that was totaled? Like, because this season is that car. It's totaled. So we're going to keep them tires in the garage until we get the new car. And that's next season.
I called G soft. He's your starting quarterback.
Because
he's your starting quarterback.
No.
Yes, he is.
He's your GD starting quarterback, and that's why you play him. No, you sit him down and you err on the side of caution. You call it soft all you want, but
what do you want to do? Err on the side of caution next year when they start off 0-5? If they start off 0-3?
Why are you see, you and I are speaking negativity into existence.
Negativity? I'm positive. That's a positive response.
Listen,
my quarterback's playing. I'm not fearing. I'm not fearing it for him. I need to see him play.
Ain't no fearing this is a lost season, so I'm not going to play
Well,
him when it
was
don't matter.
borderline lost heading into the Seattle game. Should we have sat him then? In the first week in November?
Because you still you shouldn't have because you still had a chance to. You could have beat Seattle, you could have beat Detroit, and you could have beat Minnesota. That's the team.
It's silly. It's silly and it's soft. It's silly.
No,
it's soft, and it's too much fear for me. Way too much fear for me. You want to do it in late December, early January, different conversation. I'm not shutting down my franchise quarterback with nearly a third of the season left if he's completely healthy.
We're out of it.
Who cares? We're not at.
Who cares?
First of all, technically we're not.
No.
Technically, we're not out of it.
No.
Okay, we're not out of it mathematically yet.
No, we definitely are mathematically.
No, we're not mathematically out of it.
In any scenario that you come up with, we lose every tiebreaker.
Actually, they're not mathematically eliminated yet. That's just a fact.
Yeah, we're going to talk scenarios next week. I'm telling you, I don't watch this. We lose every tiebreaker.
I can't believe you want to sit him and basically go into year 3 with him having played 5.5 games when he was healthy enough to play 11 games. Doesn't make any sense to me.
You called it
but that's not the question. So is De'Ami Brown your number one?
I already gave you mine, but I'm just saying.
Is it De'Ami?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. De'Ami Brown, not being coachable. Forget y'all. Hell to the Redskins.
Happy Thanksgiving if I don't talk to you.